So I did take a couple of notes in case Chris and I lose train of thought and what we want to talk about. And I can't imagine that's going to happen with us. We both like to talk a lot. So the topic is, can one person really make a difference, and can they be heard? And that came to me because we look at things that happen in the mass media every day. I'm a journalism student, so I've got 2 degrees in journalism, so believe me, I love the media. That's what we do for a living. But for me, what I'm seeing more and more is the kinds of things that Linda referenced earlier. You know, things can just get out of control and go viral, and people hit the share button without thinking about it. And some of those things hit to real people. So when you look at what's going on in the world today, and people like me have grown up in the cities. My family is 4 generations, city of Memphis, inside the loop. For people that don't know what that means we've been incredibly urban, my people have, for generations. Just like Chris and a lot of other farmers are really proud of how many generations their families have been on their farm. For me, I'm really proud of being a city person. But at the same time, we started getting this real interest in food. The taste of bacon makes this room go insane all day, the word comes up. And so for me, I started looking at it and thinking, well, if you know about how bacon is produced, I just know it tastes good. And until yesterday, I'd never been to a hog farm. And for me, that's really odd because I've worked in agriculture for decades. Okay, and I'd never been to a hog farm. And so really what I wanted to do is con Chris into getting on this roller coaster with me, because I'm not a real big planner for this. After having done it last year, all my plans were thrown out the window by midday anyway. So I just wanted to sit down and kind of talk to you a little bit about what we do. So I'm going to start by having Chris kind of introduce herself and talk a little bit about her family farm. Then we'll talk a little bit about some of the social media things we've done. And then Larry stole a couple of our really good points about hog farming, but we've got other really great points. So we'll bring those up.
So my name is Chinn, and my husband Kevin and I are 5th generation farmers in Missouri. But what I'm probably the most proud of is my 2 children. I have a daughter and a son both, and we live on our family farm where 3 generations live and work every single day. On our farm, we have hogs, we have cattle, we have corn, we have soybeans, and we also have the children have 2 show heifers as 4-H projects. And my son also has chickens, against my will, that he is responsible for every single day, and I try my best not to run over them when they get in my way.
Chris, like a lot of farmers, lives in what we would call the middle of nowhere. I joked, I told Jeff last night, I said, my friends found out that I was going to Chris's, and we all know how her challenges with internet are. So my friends were like, just keep her really busy and maybe she won't notice she doesn't have access. Like her cell phone is dead for hours on end. Maybe she won't notice if she's looking at pretty pigs or something like that. So it's a really different set of challenges. So when it came to getting on social media, and I think today is like an obvious example of how many farmers want to be out there if you have questions, and they want to be heard from, and they want to be able to add their part of the story. And for me, I know Larry was at the first conference we did from the Ag Chat Foundation, where we had a lot of farmers in there just learning how to use Twitter and learning how to blog and things like that. But there's still other challenges for us when we're in agriculture. So it's funny because one of my challenges in working with farmers all day, every day is I don't know the vernacular of a lot of things. So a lot of times they'll use wording and I'll kind of go, And the first time I met a couple of farmers from California that have done 140 in San Francisco and LA, the first time I met them, we were at dinner and they were talking about breeding their animals at dinner. And I got to tell you, my mom, we really don't talk about sex at dinner. And I don't care if it's your animals or something, but my mother just kind of had that as off the limit. So I got to learn all kinds of neat stuff at dinner that night. But really, I've had the opportunity by engaging with these folks. I've met a garbanzo bean farmer. You know, I love hummus. My God, chickpeas are like an incredible gift of the gods. And I'm sure if Liz is still here, she's got to have some good chickpea recipes in that family somewhere. But but they do talk about sex over dinner, is Liz's point. But for me, it's I've had this opportunity from my office and from my home on weekends and at night to meet farmers who produce every crop that's imaginable. I mean, I really never thought about my hummus coming from a farm in Indiana, in Idaho, and that Gail and her husband John are the ones that grow it for me. And that's one of the dynamics that social media has been able to offer me. And Chris has had a little different view because she remembered where her pork came from. She remembered it was pig.
So for me, getting on social media was kind of a challenge because where I live, we had dial-up. Yeah, ooh. And so anytime I would travel, I was always so excited because I had the opportunity to use high-speed internet. And so I would just go crazy on Twitter and on Facebook and try to meet as many people as I could. And I realized really quickly that my terminology confused the heck out of everybody. And that when I was talking about a sow, somebody thought it was a typo and that it was a cow. They didn't realize that a sow was a female hog that had given birth before. And so it really opened my eyes as to how am I going to talk with these people if they don't know what I'm talking about? And so that started up the whole conversation of let's go back to the basics. Let's teach people what we do and let them see and have a better understanding of what my life is like every day out here on the farm. And so I've had that great opportunity through the social media to connect with people. And I have to be honest, at first I didn't think anybody would want to hear from a farmer because I think about what I do and it's just my life, and I can't imagine that anybody would be excited to follow me around for the day on the farm and sit there while I take care of the animals or while I'm doing data production records or things like that. But Janice came, and she was just so amazed by it. And we've had other visitors come to our farm, and they really are interested in what we are doing and why we do some of the things we do on the farm.
When you think about it, food is like such an integral part of our lives, you know. That's where you celebrate things. That's the recipes you have from your grandparents. You know, there's a caramel cake in my family that if somebody doesn't learn how to make it before so-and-so dies, every generation, life will stop as we know it, you know. But so food and connecting that to the farms where it's produced and stuff is like an obvious curiosity at a certain point, but for so long, people like my family just had no care at all because we can go to the grocery store and we pick up whatever we want. So whether it's wrapped in cellophane, as our guy said this morning about meat, it was wrapped in cellophane, we don't really think about it. Now, one of the things that I have to joke about her farm yesterday, and I took a picture of her husband and I shared it on Facebook, and I probably shouldn't have done that, Kevin, I'm sorry if you ever hear this, but we were sitting there and we had been through the hog barns and we had to go through, we had to put these big, huge plastic things over our shoes so that we couldn't track in any dirt from outside and we couldn't track any manure anywhere else. And it was kind of crazy, right? And I had just showered earlier and I was all ready for my day. And, you know, who here thinks that hogs and hog barns might smell? Uh-huh. Okay. So I got to tell you, I drove up to her house. You can see the barns in the distance, and it doesn't smell there really. Now, when we got into the barns, there was a smell. But then I'm thinking about when you get in my backyard and I've got a dog, it smells too. So it's all kind of relative. What was interesting, though, is when we left the barns and stuff and we were about to go to town to eat lunch because it was really late, and Kevin's looking at us and going, "Aren't you going to shower first?" And we're picking up their son, and he's going, "I mean, seriously, you have to shower first." And I'm like, "Will you tell him just to get over it? We're fine. Kevin, really, we're fine. It's going to be fine." And then later, Chris started explaining to me why there was such a preoccupation on it.
So the reason we want people to feel good about what we do on our family farm, and we want them to understand that our image is important to us. And so I remember when I was working at a bank that there would be some farmers who would come in with some very muddy boots and they would leave a trail behind them, and we would smell it all day long as everybody walked in it. And that wasn't a very good image for agriculture. And, these farmers were busy. They didn't have time to change their clothes and their shoes beforehand, so they didn't worry about that. And so that's where image became to be very important to us. We wanted people to understand that not only do we care about our animals, we care about our property, we care about our environment, and we care about what our neighbors and our community think of us as well. So we have a rule on our farm that we don't go to town unless it's an emergency without taking a shower or at least changing our boots and our clothes, so that people have a good perception of what our family farm does for our community, which is providing food for my family and for other families as well.
I shattered that so quickly without knowing that's what I was doing. And the reason I did, I'm like, oh, come on, we're fine, let's go. Because I'm thinking about when my family goes to the park or the zoo and we're like out there sweating all freaking day, we never think a thing about stopping somewhere on the way home to have a sandwich. I mean, it just would never enter my mind that would be a big deal, because we go into wherever you are in the city. If you've been out all day mowing lawns, you'll still stop and you'll pick up a sandwich somewhere without a problem. But the fact that you're carrying your farm with you, and there's a real pride in that farming, and you really don't want to leave people with a bad impression. And something so little. So next time, I promise I'll take a shower. If I'm at a hog farm, before I go anywhere else, I'll get fully showered first. And we did make sure that we didn't sit at tables anywhere near anybody else. We had a big buffer zone in case anybody was bothered by it. I think when I was walking through the barn, one of the things I was really interested in was, I don't know, I learned all I know about pig farming from seeing Charlotte's Web when I was like 8. I don't know if that's a similar thing, but that Wilbur, the runt pig, really kind of captivated me, and I thought I knew everything. That and about the spider. Obviously, you knew a lot about Charlotte. But when we were walking through the barn yesterday, and you're seeing the sows with all the piglets, it was really interesting to be able to pick out the runt that quickly. And I know I've done it on litters of puppies and kittens, but when you're talking about it on a farm scale, you're seeing, I don't know, are they litters of piglets? Yeah. Litters of piglets, quite a few of them, and you see a few runts. And it's kind of like, well, what are the chances, Chris? Aren't you going to pick up that runt and take him like to the house and feed him or something like that to give that kid a chance?
So what I explained to Janice is that we create nurse sows. So when a sow has weaned her litter of pigs, we will leave her in the farrowing house, and we will go and get a collection of these runt pigs and nurse them onto this sow who has already weaned her litter. And the reason that we do that is so that these smaller pigs have a fighting chance with other pigs that are the same size as they are. And so I explained to Janice that we, by moving our hogs indoors or inside our hog barns, have been able to save the runt pigs and give them a fighting chance, because we can manage how we take care of them so much better than if they were outside. If these hogs were outside, we would not be able to help them have a fighting chance at life, because we wouldn't be able to nurse them on to a different mother sow.
It was like totally revolutionary to me. Of course, we were where they were they just had the pigs. I mean, we're talking brand new piglets.
They were still wet.
And I was going to say, and the doctors had not washed them up to put them in the window for people like me to look at, right? I don't have children. I don't need to see all that, but they're at the piglets. I'm okay. One of the things that also really struck me, we went into one of the barns that had a huge number of pigs to me. You think about it, Larry said earlier he had 4,000 hogs. Is that right? Okay, so then Chris and I were kind of ag nerds. There's a bunch of us out there on Twitter. But we looked, and the average person eats 45 pounds of pork a year. I probably do more than that because I really love bacon. But when you look at that, that means one hog is about 200 pounds when it's finished meat at the cuttings. And so that's one hog is going to feed 5 people.
For a year.
So Larry has fed 20,000 people today. My family has fed like 2, because my brother does have a self-sufficient kind of farming, gardening interest. But so Larry's helping feed my family because we're not covering our weight in the 20,000 nearly like you are. But most farmers in the U.S., if you look at it on average, farmers are going to feed 155 people. That's because there's a lot of us who like living in cities. We like doing what we like to do. Farmers like doing what they like to do too, so they go ahead and carry their weight on the farm, and it's their job. But it's a bit more than that, and you've got a whole lot of family that are involved in farming and stuff as well. And why don't you tell them a little bit about some of those family dynamics, because I was able to meet quite a few people.
So Kevin and I farm with his mom and his dad, as well as his brother. And then my parents also help. And I am the in-law, so it's very unique that the in-law daughter-in-law would be bringing in her mom and dad to help in the operation as well too. But we do that, and it works well. We each have our own little area of the farm that we take care of. Kevin's mom oversees all of the breeding and the farrowing, which is where the sows go to give birth. Kevin's dad and I, we help make all the feed for our hogs at our family feed mill. Kevin's brother, he organizes the trucking the pigs from barn to barn, getting the feed to the hogs, getting the hogs to market. And my husband, Kevin, is the one who arranges making sure that the hogs are sold on time. He makes sure that we have empty barns to move the new pigs to, and he is the fill-in man for every single one of us. So anytime something goes wrong, he normally hears about it.
So that's at Chris Chinn. I'm at JP Loves Cotton. We sure love talking to you guys, and I can't wait for drinks tonight.